Good morning, IMB members. This is Jason from IMB. It's 10 o'clock and we want to get our webinar started on time. We appreciate you being here. And before we jump into things, just a couple housekeeping items regarding the webinar. Today's webinar is being recorded and you will be provided all slides from the presentation at the conclusion of the webinar. So don't feel that you need to keep up with notes, or if there's somebody else in the office that you feel this would be valuable to watch at the end of the webinar, it will be recorded and we'll be providing the recording and the slides to you at the conclusion of the webinar. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy the information that you'll get over the next half hour. Second, as I mentioned, as you come into the webinar, you are on mute, but does not mean you can't ask any questions. We are accepting questions via the chat feature in the webinar. So simply type in your question via the chat feature and submit them. IMB staff will be monitoring throughout the webinar those questions. We want to keep this casual. So at any time, ask the question. If something is being discussed and you have a question specific to that, submit your question. And most times we're able to go ahead and answer that during the session. We are going to leave some time at the end of the webinar to address any outstanding questions. And should we just not be able to get to your questions, rest assured, we are capturing all questions and we'll answer those afterwards. We'll either follow up directly with you or submit the answers to the group as a whole if we think it's a benefit for everybody. But again, thanks for your time this morning as we introduce IMS and specifically a good partner within IMS, Frederick Mutual. Let me get started with some background. First, again, my name is Jason Ernest, President and CEO of IAMB, and very excited to have with us Jill Showalter, Vice President, Chief Operating Officer at Frederick Mutual. I'll introduce you to Jill in a little bit once I provide some background information. But let's talk IMS first, set the stage before we introduce you to Frederick Mutual. Why IMS? Why is IAMB getting into a market access program? The simple answer is it is a member ask. A little over a year ago, we surveyed our membership, something that we do often. And the question we asked a little over a year ago was, what is it that bothers you? What's the number one concern that you have as a small independent agent? What is it that keeps you up at night? And we heard the usuals: technology, finding new staff, perpetuation, those things that we expected. But the number one concern that came up was a little bit surprising to us, just by nature that it was the number one concern, and that was carrier representation and advocacy. What we heard specifically from members is, sure, you can get appointed rather easily out there in today's marketplace, especially in our 3 states. But the concern as a small agent was the representation or the advocacy that agent, or the lack thereof, that agent has with the carriers. What we heard is you may have 15, 20 appointments, but each of those carriers wants to be number one in the agency, and pressure points from that stance from the carriers. Premium volume requirements. We heard a lot about that the premium volume requirement for a large agency is the same for a small agency, and carriers really push based on that. And that's fine for your big 1 or 2 carriers within the agency. But again, when you're appointed with many, many carriers, those pressure points are starting to hit on our agents. And we believe that's why this was raised as the number one concern, and something that we've looked at and really hope to address for our members because of them raising this concern. The result of that over the last year and a half is IMS, something we feel addresses those concerns as raised to us by our members. So first, what is IMS? IMS is a market access program, but it is not Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware. It's not IMB only. This is a partnership amongst many state associations in the country. And what I'm showing you now is the current footprint of IMS, 13 states, and you'll see the agency count within those states. And this is where we begin to talk about carrier representation and advocacy. When you have a footprint of this size, and it's based on the State Trade Association for Independent Insurance Agents, that gets respect and garners some attention from the carriers. They realize that this isn't a small endeavor, but starting to become a national endeavor. Members of a state professional association, and that brings some clout and brings some attention to carriers. So first and foremost, IMS is not unique to IAMB. This is a partnership, and this partnership is going to grow. We are currently expanding this footprint, and next year you'll see a larger footprint from this with many more agencies. So again, with that type of footprint, you as an agent get the clout that you might not be getting otherwise as a loan appointed agency. Some bullet points about IMS that will further clarify for you. First, really, I think foremost is this is an exclusive member-only benefit. As a member of IAMB, that is the only way that you have access to IMS and access to the menu that I'll show you here in a second. So we're proud to say that this is an IAMB exclusive member-only benefit. A key distinction here, and you may hear the word appointment thrown around today, but keep in mind this is unique in that you are not directly appointed with the carrier. That appointment is between IAMB and the carrier. You act as a sub-producer of IAMB under that appointment, and that's a key distinction. May not be for everybody, but based on what we heard from our member agencies, that is a distinction that we think some agencies are looking for. Allows you to write business with a carrier that you might not otherwise have access to without the direct appointment and some of those pressure points that come from that. So what are those? So within IMS, there's low to no volume requirements. This is carrier specific. Some carriers do not have any volume requirements. Some do, but it's minimal and certainly not what you might see if you were directly appointed with a carrier. So some of those pressure points come off because you are acting as a sub-producer within IMS. Extremely competitive commission rates, in most cases, street level commission rates. What you would get as an appointed agent, you get through IMS or very close to that. So we wanted to make sure that the commission is what you would get. So you're getting paid the same or similar commission rates without those volume requirements. There are no fees for participating. Again, IAMB exclusive benefit. There are no additional fees. If you're a member of IAMB, you have access to this. And also very important to us, no restrictive contract terms that you often see in either market access programs, aggregator situations. We know that those situations are sometimes not palatable to agents because they give up some rights or it's tough to get out. None of those exist in this situation. There's no restrictive contract terms to be a sub-producer and begin writing through IMS. How do you do it? It is a very simple two-step process. First, you complete a simple four-page application. This is all available through IAMB and through the IMS website. That application consists of proof of E&O, copy of an individual's license, and copy of the agency license. And it really is as simple as that. You compile that information, fill out the simple application, and then there is a very simple sub-producer agreement. As I mentioned, that's between IAMB and you as a sub-producer, written by IAMB, so very favorable terms. All those things that we look for in contracts, of course, are in the sub-producer agreement that we have with you in order to get into IMS. Complete that two-step process, and what's nice is complete that once, and you have the ability to write with any or all of the carriers. And I'll show you the menu in a second, but you don't have to go through this process for each and every carrier. You select, you take a look at the menu of carriers that we have, you select, and this two-step process I just talked about applies in all cases. It's often a very quick approval by the carriers. Once they receive this information, they are able to give a approval for you to enter into IMS. In some cases, based on what their geographic appetite is, based on where the other agents are, a carrier is not required to accept any and all takers within IMS, but they'll take a look at this application, give approval, often quick, often in a couple days. Some carriers it can take up to 30 days. But once that approval is given by the carrier, you're off and running and writing with that carrier. The menu. We really wanted to make sure this was a robust menu that addresses specific niches, specific needs of our members. And what you see here is specific ask of our members. So in a second, we're going to learn a lot more about Frederick Mutual and what they write through IMS. We have our standard carriers, Travelers, Progressive, MetLife. Then we get into some specialty markets. We have two very good workers' comp markets, V3 and Normandy, very tech-forward workers' comp markets that allow you additional option for placement of workers' comp. We have small business owner policy carriers with Attune and Coterie. Again, tech forward, very good companies, forward thinking if you're looking in that realm. Then we have very specialized markets, cyber with Cowbell, NatGen Flood, which is a Beyond Floods program, hospitality through RMS, and then a personal jewelry insurance market through Gibna. So we wanted to provide you a broad, robust market for carriers that, again, you might not otherwise have access to, or markets that you specifically need and you can access through IMS. This will continue to grow and evolve based on member feedback, but we want to make this a program that you use and really speaks to you as a member and what your concerns may be. So a couple ways to learn more after you hear from Frederick Mutual. First, you can go directly to the imsaccess.com website. Again, imsaccess.com. Once you go to that site, you select a drop-down menu for your specific state, and it will show you that carrier menu that I just provided to you with specifics. Each carrier has created a profile on this site to tell you what exactly, what risk they are looking for, what their appetite is, specific commission schedule, all details about the carrier within that. The application process that I mentioned is there. If you're looking for an IAMB contact, should you have any questions after today's webinar, after you've had a chance to explore, Tim Wonder, our Vice President of Membership at IAMB, is managing the IMS program. You have his contact information right here. Please reach out to Tim at any time with any questions, with any feedback. If there's a specific market that you're interested in, please reach out to Tim and do that. So with that intro, I see there's a couple of questions. I'm going to first turn it over. How do we find out low premium volume requirements prior to signing up as a sub-producer? Great question. imsaccess.com. Each carrier covers what their specifics are. So each carrier has a profile page, and we make sure that they are very clear on what their requirements are within that. So please go to that page. And as Jill mentioned, she'll cover that specifically for Frederick Mutual. But great question. Again, imsaccess.com, select the specific state from the dropdown, and you'll learn more. If there's continued questions, reach out to Tim and we can provide that. But great question. With that, I'm going to stop sharing, and Jill Showalter, if you don't mind, Jill, provide a little intro about you first, and then you can start your screen share as you're doing that, and the floor is yours. Again, members, any questions at any time, submit them via chat. We will monitor and get to those. But Jill, welcome. Thank you for being here, and take it away.
All right. Thank you so much, Jason. And thanks to Tim and Jeff and everyone at IAMB and IMS for the opportunity for this partnership, which we are very excited about. So I think it probably makes sense to maybe walk through the process by which we would, and I know Jason mentioned a point. We kind of use a point interchangeably with partnership or you know, have an agreement with the individual agency members who are affiliated with IMS and are accessing us through IMS. So for the purposes of this, I'll just call it an appointment, even though it's technically not an appointment, but just for the ease of our conversation here. So what I would like to do first is maybe just walk everybody through what our appointment process is, and then I want to walk through our agent guide and just give you a high-level overview of Frederick Mutual's appetite, a little bit about the company, what our operating footprint is, and you know, kind of what expectations would be with the IMS appointed agencies. So usually the way that this works is we receive either an email directly from an agency, or we get a referral coming through IMS because the agency has contacted them. So usually our first step is to reach out to that agency and set up just a brief phone call so that we can just learn a little bit about what their focus is, what their needs are, and how Frederick Mutual would partner with them to accomplish what they're attempting to accomplish with their business plan. So that would be the first step. And then if everything is in agreement and we want to move forward with working with that agent, then we send out paperwork, and that is that's the paperwork that we would send normally to an agency that would be coming to us directly for an appointment. But it's important information that because we need to get email addresses, we need to know the different roles of the individuals in the agency. You know, who's the principal, who's the tech contact, who's the claims contact, and that type of information. And it just also gives us a little bit more background about the agency. So our premium commitment is $50,000. So we do ask that the agency members that are coming through IMS commit to a $50,000 premium commitment. And again, we're looking for that $50,000 over the course of 3 years. So we're not necessarily saying you have to write that $50,000 in the first year. Obviously, we'd be very thrilled if you did, but that is not a requirement. And then I know I always get the next question is, well, what if we don't hit the 50,000? So in a situation where we are, aggregating a group of agencies up under an umbrella of a larger organization such as IMS, there's a lot of grace given as far as the $50,000 commitment. Agencies that aren't getting 50,000, we're certainly going to work with you to try to get there. But at the end of 3 years, or if you're at 40,000 or 35,000. We're going to continue to work with you. We're not necessarily going to part ways over the lack of the $50,000. And now at the end of 3 years, you're at $2,000. That might be a different story. And we would have a conversation with the folks at IMS to determine whether or not we want to continue to work with that agency. So this is a very, very favorable agreement, as Jason mentioned, that the level of commitment as far as agencies can drop out of this or move forward with direct appointments down the road if they reach a certain premium threshold. So this is a really great benefit for agents, and we're really excited about it because it is unique and it is a little bit different than most of the aggregation opportunities out there. And I think most of the agents are aware of kind of what the freedom that you give up when you aggregate. Sometimes it can be have some long-lasting impacts that you may not be interested in.
And Joe, real quick, sorry to interrupt, but I'm glad you mentioned that, and I failed to mention that in my intro, that agents can use IMS as a way to kick the tires with some carriers, and I think you mentioned it, should they, over a period of a year, couple years, produce some volume, there is that direct appointment opportunity after the carrier or after the agent has tested out the carrier. That's correct, right?
Yeah. So we had a discussion with both Tim and Jeff at IMS about that, and we agreed that minimum would be $250,000 in premium. So obviously we're just getting kicked off here, so we don't have anyone who's even close to that point right now. But we're forward looking, and that could potentially come to fruition with some of the members. So we did set that $250 minimum to move over to a direct appointment. So that's
great. Thanks.
A little bit more information in regard to that. So, all right. Well, Jason, did you have anything else that you wanted to mention? If not,
nope. That was it. Please go ahead. Yep.
Okay. Excellent. That's a good point. So I'm glad that came up. So first of all, I want to tell you all a little bit about, what I'm walking through here, it's not a PowerPoint presentation. This is actually our agent guide. And this is something that we provide all of our appointed agents, and we actually provide this to prospective agents so they get to know Frederick Mutual a little bit. Just so everyone is aware, so Frederick Mutual has been in business for 178 years, continuously in business. The company is based in Frederick, Maryland, and for many, many years operated only in the state of Maryland. About 20 years ago, expanded into Pennsylvania. And in the last 3 years, we have expanded into Delaware, DC, Virginia, and North Carolina. And we do have a certificate of authority in South Carolina, so that will be our next state of expansion. I know this group is primarily writing business in the Mid-Atlantic and in Maryland and Pennsylvania and Delaware and maybe a little bit in Virginia. So just to give you all some background. Freddie, we are a mutual company, and our policyholders are owners of the company, and they vote on our board members and any amendments that we make to our charter. So, we are obviously very much invested in the outcome of the company so that we can, continue to be in business and continue to support our policyholders who are our members. We are right now in a very significant product development phase. So we have implemented a new policy administration system, and that provides a lot of additional benefits to our agents and policyholders. Agents now have access to electronic documents, so they can see the policy documents electronically. They could always get into the billing, but it's a much more robust offering as far as being able to access the accounting information. We also have an app and also a portal that our policyholders can access to get to their account information. They can pay their bills online. They can also download their policy documents. So that is all something that we've implemented within the last few months, and that's very, very exciting. And we're going to continue to make improvements there and continue to offer additional features with that electronic delivery. Right now, we have commercial lines products available in our entire operating footprint, and that consists of a BOP, and it is an ISO BOP, which has about 430 classes of business available, and a commercial umbrella. We have commercial auto in Maryland and Pennsylvania, which is great for this group. And then from a personal line standpoint, we have a homeowners product, and we have just recently launched a completely updated and transformed homeowners offering in Maryland, along with an ISO personal umbrella that covers over the top of that homeowners product, and we can also cover over other carriers' auto. We just have to underwrite the underlying auto if we write the personal umbrella. And then we are on the cusp of launching that new product for homeowners and personal umbrella in Pennsylvania and Virginia. And again, we offer the electronic policy delivery to the agents and policyholders with that new product. And I'll get into some of the product enhancements that we have that go along with the base policy. As I mentioned, those are all ISO products. The BOP is basically off-the-shelf ISO with really no modifications to the underlying form. The homeowners policy does have some modifications, but very minor modifications. But we did some review of other carriers' base forms, and we did implement some of the language that other carriers offer to expand on that base ISO product. So I'm just going to move along here because I think I've pretty much covered the background of the company. This is our senior staff. As I mentioned, we are based in Frederick, Maryland, but we do have a number of staff who are not necessarily based in Frederick. I am one of them. I'm actually work out of my home in North Carolina and visit the Frederick office every few months, or every few weeks. Bob Pelletier, who is our Chief Claims Officer, also lives in North Carolina, but also visits the Frederick office. Nancy Newmister, our President and CEO, has a home in Maryland, so she's primarily based out of the Maryland office. Paul Stenbjorn is based out of Virginia, and Erica, our Executive Coordinator and HR Specialist, is also based out of Maryland. And so our staff is primarily in Maryland. Some are hybrid, some work out of their homes 100% of the time. Some of them work partially in the office, and some work 100% in the office. So it really just depends on the role that the individual has. So we have people in multiple places so that we can get to you if you need us to visit you. And I forgot to mention, as far as the agency appointment process goes, once we move through the process, once we get your paperwork, and I know Jason mentioned this, once we get your paperwork and you're ready to move forward to partner with Frederick Mutual, we submit the paperwork to our IT department to get everybody set up, get the agency code set up. That typically takes about 48 hours from the time that we get the paperwork. So it is a very quick process. Sometimes it takes less, sometimes more, but on average, it's about a 48-hour turnaround time. And then the next step would be that each agency has a dedicated personal lines underwriter and a dedicated commercial lines underwriter. So the next step would be that the two underwriters would set up a phone call webinar with the agency to walk through our rating process and also walk through the appetite and answer any questions that the agency has. So we try to give a good foundation for everyone to kind of go forward. And obviously, because there's a dedicated personal lines underwriter and a dedicated commercial lines underwriter, there's a point of contact. So agencies know who to go to if they have any questions. And if the underwriter can't answer the question, then they're obviously going to put the agent in touch with the help desk or whomever it is that can help them. So that is how we onboard agents. These are just our payment plans. So we have a pretty, robust payment plan offering. Commercial lines, a little bit different than personal lines, but still pretty generous. We do, automated recurring payments is an offering, and as I mentioned, policyholders can also gain access to their accounting and make payments online. So there's multiple options. We do not do agency bill; it's all direct bill. So I know that sometimes that question comes up. Just to give you a little background on how we handle claims, we have a claims department within Frederick Mutual. They are inside claims folks. So we have independent adjusters that actually go out physically into the field, and we have a very competent group of independent adjusters that do that for us. We also have some engineers, and then we also have some dedicated coverage counsel that helps us if there are questions about compensability of a claim. So the point of contact is always going to be the Frederick Mutual claims representative who will coordinate with the independent adjusters and will work with the policyholder if there are any questions or concerns about their claim. So let's talk a little bit about our appetite. As I mentioned, here's right at the Frederick Mutual Insurance.com at frederickmutual.com. That is how the policyholders gain access to their documents and make online payments. We also recently started partnering with DocuSign so that agents can do electronic signatures with policyholders on the applications and other policy documents. So I've already went through the product offering. I forgot to mention we also have a dwelling fire product in Maryland. That is something that we are going to be updating that product, and we'll be most likely offering that in some additional states, but that's kind of farther down on the product development list. Kind of next up for us is commercial auto and homeowners. So we are, as I mentioned, we are getting ready to launch our new homeowners product in Pennsylvania and Virginia. North Carolina is next in the queue, and then we also will be launching that product in Delaware and DC within the next 6 to 8 months. So those are in the queue for kind of sort of in the next for product development. And then commercial auto, where we currently have a product in Maryland and Pennsylvania. We are going to be revamping that product and then launching it in additional states. So just so you know, like as I mentioned, we're going to continue to innovate. So we are going to continue to launch additional products in additional states. And I know there's right now, just for Delaware, we only have a commercial lines product. So I know we have some opportunities there. So a few of the coverages that we offer that are ancillary to just the basic policy coverages and kind of the basic, ISO and proprietary endorsements that we offer. We have equipment breakdown that's available on our Secure Bot product as well as on our Secure Home product. We have contractors E&O that's available on the Secure Bot product for those classes that are eligible, and most of the class codes are eligible for that contractors E&O. We also offer miscellaneous professional again for select classes like optometrists and I think veterinarians. There's some funeral homes. There's a pretty lengthy list of class codes that are eligible for the miscellaneous professional coverage. We have EPL coverage available, and that's available for all classes on the Secure Bot product. And then on the Secure Home product, we have home systems protection, service line, we have home cyber, and we have inland flood. And we are going to be adding the inland flood on the Bot product later this year. So that will be a new offering that's coming very soon. So just a high-level overview of our target markets: apartments, offices, retail, artisan contractors, processing and service, wholesale and distributors. So again, this is an ISO-based product. So we aren't your go-to market for, what I'll call, kind of out of the box classes of business or exposures. We do write a lot of habitational business, and that is a combination of both apartments. We also write lesser's risk only, and we also write mixed use habitational. So that would be, where you have the retail on the ground level and, an apartment upstairs. We write quite a bit of that. We rate those on a, one-off basis, and we also rate schedules where there are, kind of a combination of all of the above with locations spread out in a, throughout a geography. So in general, our guidelines here, 6 stories or less, and 15 million a TIV, 15 locations per policy. That is a guideline. We can do more, and we have done more, but we just use that as sort of a guideline. And this is a situation where, if you have something that's outside of that parameter, the best approach would be to talk to the underwriter and, kind of walk through what the risk is, and we could make a determination pretty quickly as to whether or not it would be something that we would be able to rate. So we do have, just want to mention a couple of extension endorsements. We have 2 enhancement endorsements for kind of for all other than contractors, and then we also have a contractor's extension endorsement that just bundles together coverages that are coverages that would be desirable for, retail or for the habitational segment. They're not necessarily all applicable to all of the segments, but that Secure Advantage enhancement endorsement is what is attached for kind of all other classes other than contractors. And then we have a contractor's extension at a couple different levels that bundles together, a number of coverages that contractors need. So onto contractors, up to $1 million in payroll, 3 years in business, and up to 25% of the annual receipts can be related to subcontracted work. In general, the artisan contractors that we write, we will write a very broad variety of contractors, plumbers, electricians, HVAC, painters, carpentry, siding. We will also write residential roofers. So it's a pretty broad appetite with the artisan contractors. Just in general, we're not going to be a market for contractors who are doing like excavation or any type of site prep or digging. So that's really kind of I will always say that's kind of the one thing to keep in mind that we will not do. So I just want to highlight here 3 years in business or related field. So we do write new businesses, new in operation. We just ask what kind of experience they have in the field. Did they work for a plumbing contractor previously, and now they're striking out on their own and opening their own operation. So that's the type of information that we're looking for in that scenario. This is just a highlight of the contractor's enhancement. So again, it's blanket additional insured, the contractor's tools and equipment, voluntary property damage, primary non-contributory, and the per location and per project aggregate. So those are all bundled into one endorsement. So those are, coverages that typically contractors want and need for, when they're subs under another contractor. And so those are all kind of bundled in together. So these are just the minimum payrolls per state. So on to, I mentioned we write lesser's risk only, so those tend to be, usually office buildings, and sometimes they are a combination of, retail or office and habitational, and we can write those as well. So processing and service, 35,000 square feet. These are pretty much ISO guidelines with some of these with regard to the square feet. And again, we can be flexible, and we have been. And if it's something that is a little bit outside of the box, we just encourage agents to contact their underwriter and talk through the risks so that we can make sure that we're understanding what it is that you have. And our underwriters are very flexible and do try to write business as, as much as they can. So they will certainly work with agents, and it's good to have that dialogue back and forth so that we all make sure we understand what, what the risk is, and we can make a pretty quick decision about what our go forward situation is. So very quickly, so retail, pretty much the same guidelines as the processing and service. We write small retail, typically with the, where there is no building coverage involved, but we can do retail where there is a building. As far as the service and processing, we do write a lot of, beauty salons and nail salons and things, barbershops, things of that nature tend to be the ones that we write most typically in that area. Wholesale and distributor. Usually wholesale and distributor are, kind of fall outside of our appetite because they tend to be larger. So we don't write a lot of business in this class, but in this market segment, we do have it available. But again, we're somewhat limited in what we can write on the box. So usually those are probably better served on a package policy. So this is, again, this agent guide, and I think Tim has a copy of this. So if anyone on the call today wants a copy of this, I think Tim has it, and you can always get in touch with me, and I can send it out to you as well if you're interested in getting a copy of this. I know I'm walking through this relatively quickly, and there's a lot in this guide. So I'm not going to go into the eligibility for all of the other coverages that we offer, but just know that they are available. And I'm not sure that I mentioned cyber. I don't know that I mentioned cyber. We do have that available on the bot policy, and we have a home cyber that's available on the homeowners policy. So just want to make sure I cover that. So these are the class codes that are eligible, and I'm just going to kind of whiz through this because I don't want to go through every class of business here. As I mentioned, the contractors, that we have probably more contracting classes available than in that segment than we do in any other segment as far as class codes that are available. So again, I'm just going to kind of flip through this real quickly, but as you can see, we've got fence erection, furniture and fixtures. I mentioned HVAC earlier, landscaping, masonry, painting, plumbing, siding, sign painting, window washing. So it's pretty broad appetite there under the contractors. And this is the appetite guide for the processing and service. So I mentioned, barbershop, beauty shops. I know we write some medical offices and nail salons. I think we write a handful of photographers, maybe a few, shoe stores, and I think some dry cleaners are some of the other classes of business that we write. This is getting into more of the office exposures, and we'll do this on both the lesser's risk and also an actual office-based risk exposure. So I mentioned, engineers and architects and insurance agents, lawyers. So we have, again, we have the miscellaneous professional that partners with many of these classes of business. And then retail, we write a lot of just what I would call, kind of your general retail stores that aren't necessarily, specific to one kind of more, general retail. We do write some, clothing stores, and we write some delis. So we don't write restaurants. We can write delis. These are more your delis that don't have cooking. So I know we write some coffee shops and things like that where there actually isn't any cooking. They may have like sandwich service and other, they might be microwaving things, but there's no actual like kitchen that's doing cooking, if that makes sense. All right, so scrolling through this. And this is the wholesale. As I mentioned, we don't write a ton of wholesalers, but we do have a pretty nice list of available class codes here. So it is something that we can do, just something that we just don't tend to write a lot of because of the size. So these are the eligible classes for the contractors E&O, and as you can see, it's a pretty lengthy list. Roofers is the one class that we do write, but we cannot do the contractors E&O on roofers. It is not an eligible class. And this is the miscellaneous professional. As I mentioned, we do write, barbers and beauticians, funeral directors. We do write some interior decorators, and the miscellaneous professional is available for those classes of business. These are the extension endorsements. As I mentioned, we have 2 different levels, and there's a lot of detail here that I'm not going to go into, but just know that we do offer some additional coverages under those 2 extension endorsements, so they're bundled together. And we did some comparisons with other carriers' extension endorsements, and so we think these are pretty competitive with the marketplace, with what other carriers are offering. And there's kind of two sections. There's a property section and then a liability section for those 2 extension endorsements. So getting into homeowners, really quickly, and I know that we want to save some time for questions. So we do have this new product called Secure Home. Our target market on Secure Home is homes with a coverage A of $350,000 to $1 million. We can do less than $350,000. We can do more than $1 million, but that's really our target market. And we do have some extension endorsements that are available that are proprietary for the Secure Home product. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have a personal umbrella product that we could write over the homeowners and the dwelling fire. Dwelling fire right now is only available in Maryland, but we're looking to expand that into other states. We can write a $1 million or a $2 million personal line umbrella. And I forgot to mention on the commercial lines umbrella, we can write between a $1 million and $5 million commercial lines umbrella. As I mentioned, we have the inland flood available, and this is actually a really nice coverage that's offered through Munich Re. It is a little bit broader than the coverage that's offered through the NFP. So it's again, not every risk is going to be eligible, but it is a really, really nice coverage, and we're really excited about that as an offering, and we will be also expanding to offer that on our commercial lines product very shortly. I mentioned we have the home systems protection. This is the, what most people refer to as the equipment breakdown. This is a really, really nice coverage, very broad, and this is written through Hartford Steam Boiler, and this is the most current offering that they have for this coverage. So it is the broadest that's available from them at this point in time. I mentioned home cyber. This is another great coverage. I know cyber is in the news pretty much every day, and we do offer cyber for both commercial lines and also on the personal lines home Secure Home product. The coverages under the Secure Home are cyber attack, cyber extortion, identity recovery, and online fraud. There are coverages available both on the personal and commercial line side where the cyber coverage gives the policyholder some support in, helping untangle if their identity's been stolen, helping untangle that, restoration of their identity, credit monitoring. And so it provides some professional resources to assist with that. On the commercial line side, same thing. It helps the business owner do, kind of reputational damage control. So there are a lot of really nice coverages and services that are aligned with those coverages. And then the service line protection, this is also offered through Hartford Steam Boiler. This is a really nice coverage. It's basically any line that comes into the home. It is far less expensive than maintenance programs that some of the utilities offer, and it's a great coverage. And living in Maryland and Pennsylvania, I know there's a lot of older properties that have older lines coming into the home. I know my home in Maryland had we had at one point terracotta pipes that led to our home that had to be replaced, and it was that was about 15 years ago, and it was like $3,000. So I can only imagine that it's probably doubled in cost now. So anyway, really nice coverages. These are the extension endorsements. We have a couple of different options. We have one that's an extension endorsement, and then we have that extends from the extended limits of liability from the ISO policy, and then we also have this bundled coverage, which provides some coverages that are not at all included in the base policy, but just give some additional coverages that policyholders may want, and they can get it through either this bundle or they can do this on an a la carte basis. And these are the extensions that, as you can see, this is the base policy here, and then we have 3 different options that are available to the policyholder to increase the limits on a bundled basis. Again, just ease of use here, trying to make things easier for agents and policyholders so you don't have to add the coverages a la carte. So that is everything that I have to share here, and I see that there are some chats, so I think it's time to open it up for questions.
Yeah, we can absolutely do that. Thank you, Jill. As I mentioned, we are going to share the information presented with everybody on the call. So if you don't mind, Jill, we'll be able to coordinate that. And that was a lot of information, Absolutely. But in a good way. So we will make sure to get this to everybody for further review. The other point I wanted to make is we reached out to Frederick Mutual. We really thought it was important to have a mutual experience within IMS. We believe in mutuals. We think they are a very unique local carrier and provide some really good service to agents as a result of that. And I think we see that here with what Jill presented. Not a company that's going to write all, but has their specialties and their niches based on local demographics in those. And I think that's what a mutual brings to any environment, but why we wanted to bring in a mutual, and based on the reputation and our respect of Frederick Mutual, why we wanted them to be the first mutual carrier within IMS. So hopefully that came across, that these guys know exactly what it is that they can write and write well. And we think that's an advantage for them being an IMS. So thanks for reviewing that, Jill. Extremely helpful. And again, we will provide this information for you guys to review in whole. So, Joe, I think you covered so much. There isn't really specific questions on appetite or Frederick Mutual, just more general questions. The first one is, and this is more of a reminder from when we started, but what is the difference between an appointed agent with Frederick Mutual and a approved agent through IMS? What are some distinctions there? And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but maybe to lead a little bit, the requirements or the premium volume that you'd be looking for within IMS perhaps are a little more lenient than what you're going to look for with an appointed agent?
Yes, Jason, you basically you hit it on the head there. So yes, for directly appointed agents, our minimum premium requirement is $150,000, and that will most likely be bumping up to a higher number in the next 2 or 3 years. So right now it's 150, but probably higher in the future. Right now, we're asking any agency that's coming through IMS to commit to $50,000. So it's a much lower commitment. And as I mentioned, I think there's a lot more grace given to agents who are members of a larger organization like IMS, because we are aggregating all the premium up. So if one agency doesn't make the $50,000, but another is, at $100,000, obviously it's all a wash. So, we're looking at it in the aggregate, not necessarily at the individual agency level. But as I mentioned earlier, if we are working with an agency and we've been together for a couple of years and we're just not seeing the production, or, it's just maybe just not a fit because of whatever that agency is writing, we will have that conversation about, maybe it doesn't make sense to continue the partnership, but there is a lot of grace given with regard to the premium. So that's probably the biggest difference between a direct appointment and coming through IMS.
Yep. And that was our point in IMS is one, perhaps an agency just doesn't want to take on another appointment and those pressure points, but they still want to have the ability to write with a good carrier, have some additional options, or get into some of these niche markets that you have. And that was the intent. And it is the aggregation. This isn't an aggregator. We don't want you guys to think of this as an aggregator, but what you do get is the benefit of the aggregation. If IMB can bring to Frederick Mutual 100 good agents that perhaps otherwise might not be looked at by Frederick Mutual, or get you those flexibilities, that's the intent and the point of this program. it's a win-win for our members and for the carrier to get business that perhaps they might not otherwise. And that truly is the advantage. So look to IMS for that. Look to Frederick Mutual for that. Do you have a farm appetite, Jill? May have glossed over it in the presentation, but talk about farms.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really great question. So we do not have a farm class code or farm program for commercial lines. However, we do have what I'll call an incidental or gentlewoman, gentleman farm opportunity on our homeowners product, on our secure home product. So we can write those that where it is not necessarily the farm is not the primary operation there. It is just incidental, because we do know that there are a number of those out there where people own property and have a couple of cows and maybe have a vegetable stand and sell their tomatoes or something. But that's really the type of farm that we could write, not an actual true commerce working farm, if that makes sense.
Yep. No. And based on that question, and we've heard that question before, maybe something that IMS looks at for a more traditional farm risk approach for that. So appreciate that comment. A couple other questions about how as an agent you can begin writing with Frederick Mutual. Again, imsaccess.com. Complete the simple two-part application process that allows you to then submit that information to Frederick Mutual or any of the other carriers on the IMS menu in our specific states, and that will allow you access, will allow Frederick Mutual to go through and decide whether they approve you through IMS or not. If you already are an agent, a sub-producer with IMS, and now want to have the authority to write through Frederick Mutual, again, as I mentioned, you'd already filled out that application process, so it's just a matter of submitting to Frederick Mutual the information that's there, and that's the process to go through. Jill, I think we covered the questions. For everybody on the call, should you have further questions, there is contact information directly for Tim Wonder at IAMB to reach out. If you have more questions specific to Frederick Mutual, we can get that to them. We can get it to the right parties at Frederick Mutual. Sorry, one other question just came in, Jill. Do you participate with any of the commercial lines comparative raters?
I just saw that question pop up.
Yep.
And we do not for commercial lines at this time. We are going to be partnering with PL Rating for personal lines, and we expect to have that ready for prime time within the next, I would say, 45 days. So that's the comparative rater that we're partnering with for the moment.
Excellent. Good. All right. So Jill, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for the presentation. Members, thank you for participating as well. Any questions whatsoever related to Frederick Mutual or IMS in general, please submit them to us. We'll be sure to get you the answer. We will be providing a recording of today's webinar, as well as the information provided to you as a participant. We will get that out to you shortly. But again, this is built based on what members have asked us for. It will continue to evolve and change based on your needs, but please consider it. We have a fair amount of IMB members that are taking advantage of IMS, a fair amount, a handful already in with Frederick Mutual and doing some good things there. So please take a look at this, take advantage of it, and should you have any questions whatsoever, reach out to us. Thank you again, Jill. We really appreciate your time. Thanks for being a partner in IMS. We're excited about this.
Yeah, we are very excited about the partnership too, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Jason. We do have already, I think, about 7 or 8 members that are already writing business with us, and it's very exciting, and we are definitely want to partner with additional members, and we really appreciate everyone's time and attention today, and thank you all for the great questions. This was a great dialogue, and I'm actually really glad this was recorded, because we probably will use this in some of our marketing too, if you all don't mind, because this is a great way to get the word out. So thank you all for your partnership.
Great. Thank you. Members, again, thanks for everything. Have a great day and reach out to us with any needs that you may have, but have a great day. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.